Okay, so we're going to try to use Adobe Illustrator to create a character or a person. So you're going to open up Adobe Illustrator just like you would open up Photoshop. File new. You have to give yourself an artboard if you want it letter size, in portrait or landscape, and hit create. Hold Alt to zoom in and out, wheel in and out on the wheel on your mouse, just like in Photoshop. I'm going to go back to this one though because I already started something. So we're going to look at a couple tools, just basic stuff today, and get into tracing. So Illustrator is really great for building things out of shapes. So you're using vectors, not pixels, and a vector is just lines basically. The computer is connecting lines for you. So you don't have to worry about the size of things. You can always change it later. So let's start by making the head of the person. So you're going to press and hold that shape maker tool and then hit ellipse. Now I'm going to make my person, let's make them have blue skin. Purple, yeah. Okay, so if I don't hold shift, I can make the circle kind of any shape that I want. But if I hold shift, it's going to make sure that I have a perfectly round circle. Now, the head, I don't really want it round. I think I want it kind of like that. Go back to my cursor. Now, in Illustrator, you have two cursors. You have V, the black one, and that's going to select the whole shape. But then A, the shortcut's A on the keyboard, or the white cursor, that's going to actually let you pick the points. So I'm going to zoom in by holding Alt. And if I click, I can now see all these points are editable. So I can pull it and play around with the handles. That's going to let me adjust the angles of things. So I can kind of give my character a little bit of a chin. Now say if I decide I don't like this shape anymore, or the color anymore, you can either go up here and pick a made color, or double click your fill here and say, I actually want them green. Perfect. This is going to be a very attractive person. All right, so let's give them ears. I like to start with ears. They don't have to be very detailed. And the ears go about halfway. Now, Control C, Control V, boom, pasted. If you want to make sure they're in the exact same place, you can use guidelines. So if you hit Control R, it'll turn your rulers on, and then you can actually bring a line down. And they're pretty good. Okay. So now our, maybe we need them a little bit lower. I can hold shift and grab both shapes at the same time and just hit down on my keyboard. Okay. So now let's make some eyes. I don't want them green. I want them white. I'll do round eyes. Okay, so your eyes are actually in line with your ears. Everyone always puts them higher up. Control C, Control V. Actually, let's build the full eye first. Okay, so that kind of looks silly, but let's add a pupil. Oh, I should. Control Z is undo. Make a new shape before I change the color. There we go. Go back to your cursor to move it around. Actually grab it, not spin it. There we go. And we'll put the pupil there. Oh, it needs the iris. That's why it looks funny. Okay, what color is his iris going to be? Let's make him have blue eyes. Oh, and I was selecting the shape again. Control Z. Okay. Make it blue. Okay. So now you can see it's layering it in order that I've created them, but I actually want the pupil above the iris. So I'm going to grab that black shape, right click and hit arrange, bring to front. So this kind of makes it so that we don't have to use layers like we do in Illustrator. You can actually use layers or like how we do it in Photoshop, but in Illustrator you can use layers. There is a layer menu bar here, or in your, there's a menu, words are hard. There are layers. You can hit new layers, all this stuff, and lock one, hide one, just like in Photoshop, but it's not as necessary as it is in Photoshop. Okay, so kind of play around a little bit. All right, looks silly, but I'm okay with it. Now to copy all of this, I'm going to hold Shift and select each one of these shapes. Now I want to flip it to the other side, so I'm going to hit Object, Transform, Reflect. So now I can hit Preview and it's going to show me that, but I'm going to hit Copy and not OK, so that way I still have both. Okay. So kind of looks like he is cross-eyed, so let's adjust that. Unless you want your character to be cross-eyed. Okay, so I'm happy with this, my creepy little alien. If I want to make sure things are centered, you can kind of see when I click the shape, it gives me those center points. So I can see, oh hey, look, this eye needs to move over more. So I'm going to hold Shift and select all the shapes. I can actually hit Control G, and that's going to group them into a group so that they all move together all the time. So I can do that with this one too. Control G. Man, this guy is going to look super interesting. Okay, so you kind of have a couple options with the nose. I'm going to leave this here for now so I can see where to put the nose in the middle. You can use the paintbrush. The paintbrush is interesting. I'm going to use a darker shade of green, except I'm going to make sure that I unselect. There we go, or else I was going to change the color of his face. So I'm going to select my paintbrush tool and maybe a darker shade of green. And then you can actually paint things. So that kind of looks goofy. Control Z to delete. Okay, maybe like that. And then up here, you can actually see that you can change your brush tips. That would not work at all, but that is also awful. You can also download more of these too. I think that one was the best. You can also make it thicker or thinner. Maybe like that. Now, you're like, oh crap, this is, oh darn it, this is way too big. So the neat thing about Illustrator, I can't just delete this chunk, but if I go to my white cursor, A, I can grab that point and this point, and I can start playing around. So maybe I can give him a bumpier nose or whatever. Okay, so then I'm going to go back to my black cursor to move the whole thing. And there's our lovely nose. Now, I might want to do the same thing for an eyebrow, but I think I'm going to show you how to difference shapes. This is going to be a wacky eyebrow. So I'm going to make a circle. Now, if you see, why is it like that? It's because my nose was just the stroke. The stroke is the line on the outside. The fill is the color on the inside. I can actually go zoink, hit that little switchy back and forth, and now I have no stroke and just a fill. Perfect. Okay, so then I'm going to make another circle, but I'm going to make it a different color so that we can see the difference. Don't worry about the color of this one. So this, I am going to just stretch out like that so that I can get myself this interesting shape. Now you're going to select both of these shapes by just clicking and dragging. Like, you don't have to click anything. You just make a box around stuff and it'll select everything all together. And then you're going to want the Pathfinder tool, which might not be in your hotbar or anything. So you're going to go to Window and then Pathfinder. This guy's really cool. So if you hover over the things, it actually shows you what they do. So Unite, if I wanted this to become one shape, I would click that. This one says minus the front. So this is going to take away that front shape, which is exactly what I want. And then intersect, so that's going to take away what is overlapping. You'll kind of see how the dark shades, that's what you're going to be left with. So if I had two things overlapping and all I wanted to keep was the overlapping part, I would want intersect. If I wanted to just keep what wasn't intersecting, I'd want exclude, etc., etc. So I want to minus the front. So I'm going to click this, and boom, now I just have this wacky shape. So here is his eyebrow. This is going to be super attractive. This person is. Okay, Control C, Control V. When I shrunk it down, I also held Shift so that I didn't make the proportions all wacky. Okay, so now let's make him a mouth. We're going to do something different this time. Okay, so this I am going to turn white, but then I'm going to give it a stroke so that he has lips, and his lips are going to be dark green. Okay, so now we're going to change this shape by taking away this point. Because if I take away this point, these 2 points will connect, and then that gives me a mouth shape. So what I'm going to do is you press and hold the pen tool here, and then there is a delete anchor tool. You can also hit the minus on your keyboard as a shortcut. And so then I'm going to take away that, and boom, now I have this weird shape. Go to my white cursor, and I can kind of change around what this looks like. Awesome. Now V, or the black cursor, so I can change the size. And there we go. Now I can give him some teeth, or maybe make his lips. This person's so weird. Now I can remove that guide just by clicking. So now for the hair, you can kind of do a couple things. The paintbrush tool we used for his nose. You can also use the pencil tool, which is hiding somewhere. There we go. This is going to let you make wacky shapes. Now the key to this is you want to make sure you close the shape so that it's all like one. I can actually also use a gradient if you wanted to make it light and dark. And actually, and you can double click in here so I can go green. Oh my gosh. To light green. We'll make it not. And you kind of play around like that. There. No, minus 90. There we go. So it kind of adds some dimension. And if you're like, hey, this is way too big, this looks super silly, hit A or go to your white cursor, and you can start moving the points around by hand. And you're like, actually, go to my negative. This whole chunk of hair looks silly. I'm just deleting these points here. A for my white cursor. No. Control Z. I like it like that. Okay. So then there's my person. So now you've kind of created this shape using just tools, right? You haven't taken anything from the internet, but a cool thing that you can actually do is trace things on Illustrator. So if I went and Googled a shirt clip art, and you went copy image, Control V is paste. So as you can see, this is a pixel, and I can't do anything with pixels in Illustrator, okay? Like, look, it looks dumb. I can't make it look like he's got a neck or anything. But what you're actually going to do is when you have this JPEG or this pixel art selected, this image trace button comes up here. So you have a lot of different options with the image trace. I'm going to hit 3 color. If I just hit default, it's going to go all black. It's a vector now, but like it doesn't really look like a t-shirt. So Control Z, but I want to keep these different colors. So I'm going to hit 3 colors. Now look, this is a vector. This is no longer a JPEG. So now I can change this up. So I can hit expand, and that's going to break it all up into shapes. Hit A for my cursor. I'm now deleting the white around it. V to move it around. Cool. Now, that might be a little bit big. We'll make his body smaller. So to give him a neck that looks like it fits, you're going to want to remove this chunk. Now, this is the hard part in Illustrator because you can't just erase things. You actually have to cut stuff out. You have to remove these points. I could take away this shape and this because they were independent of themselves, but all this black is all connected. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the knife tool, which is hiding underneath the eraser tool. So hit the knife, and it's going to let you make a line. It ends up being like a really weird line, but that is okay. So that will let me remove this piece, and then I believe I also have to make a line here. We'll see how this goes. And here. So now A for my cursor. There we go. See, now I can select this as an independent shape, and I can hit delete, and I can hit delete. Now, of course, this looks silly. So you're going to hit A for your cursor, and this is where I'm going to hit minus on my keyboard. I can start cleaning up the points so that it looks like a normal shape. you might have to zoom in. Again, you just hold Alt. So sometimes this saves time by not having to create really complicated shapes. And then sometimes if it doesn't trace well, it just ends up being like a big waste of time. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but at least you'll know how to do it. So you can kind of see these shapes overlap themselves because it's just a trace and it's not a real good vector, but we'll use this for now. Okay, so here's my vector. I can now double click all these shapes and I can change the color. So let's make him wear, I kind of want to stick with this blue and green. Blue. Awesome. Whoops, forgot to grab some. I'm holding Shift, then I can hit I for eyedropper and actually just click that other color so that I know they match perfectly. Now I'm going to give him a neck. Hit I to select the green. Actually, I'm going to, yeah, I'll use this. And then V. Okay, and then right click, arrange, send to back. So that looks absolutely ridiculous. I'm gonna hit A. I might need to make it a rectangle. Well, okay, that looks good. The thing is now is because it's the same color, it kind of looks goofy. So you have two choices. You can either make this a little different of a color, or you could make, using the paintbrush tool, a little shadow. This, I'm going to hit I and make it that color. And then you're going to go up into Effect, Stylize, no, Blur. Gaussian Blur, preview that. No, it's way too much. Okay, something like that. And just like in Photoshop, you can make it kind of see-through. And we're going to send this backwards so that it's behind the head but in front of the neck. Arrange, send backwards. Is it behind the head? No. Arrange, send to back. Then I'm just going to send this to the back again. Okay. So now I have the shadow behind his neck. So that's kind of cool. You can also, I guess, make this a gradient the way we did with the hair. But sometimes I just find it easier to control with the shadow. So now he's got his shirt on. It's kind of maybe too far down. People's necks aren't that long. And now his neck is too fat. A for cursor. Bring it in. So it looks like it's fitting into the shirt. Perfect. And then you'll just build things like that. And keep going. And then you're going to File, Save As. And you're going to want to save it as a PDF, an Adobe PDF. This way you can see it in Google Drive, but you can also open it up in Illustrator and still edit it. So I will name it Alien Dude. And then you're going to hit Save. And then you're awesome. This will pop up and you're going to hit Save. And you're done. Well, maybe make some arms and some legs and stuff, but you get the idea.